You're listening to 99.1 CJAM FM, broadcasting in Windsor and Detroit and around the world at www.cjam.ca. We provide music and information programming not offered by the mainstream commercial media in the Windsor-Detroit area. 99.1 CJAM FM, redefining radio in Windsor and Detroit. Your home for melodic heavy metal. Playing it heavier, louder, raunchier, faster. 99.1 CJAM. This is the Signals of Intuition.
Hi, this is Matt Smith from Theocracy, and you're listening to Signals of Intuition.
.1 CJAM FM. There's Theocracy right there with I Am from their latest album, As the World Bleeds. You were listening to the Signals of Intuition, 2 hours of melodic hard rock and heavy metal coming your way. And tonight we have a very special show. We have the singer of that band, Matt Smith, on the line right now. This has been an interview 2 years in the making. It's been kind of back and forth. You know, someone always has to cancel, and finally we are able to do it. So here we go. So hey, Matt, how's it going, man?
Hey, Brendan, what's going on, man?
Oh, not too much.
I'm glad we could finally do this.
Yeah, it's been, 2 years in the making or something?
Something like that. I hope it lives up to the hype. Hey, thank you again for your patience, seriously.
Oh, no worries, man. I had Tony Mills. It took me, I think, 2 years to finally get him, so...
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, no worries. And you know what? I'm glad now that we could do this, now that you've got something to promote, because I think last time was, like, the middle of 2010, and, I mean, Mirror Souls was, two years old by that point or something?
Right. Yeah.
So, if you don't mind, if we jump right in?
Sure thing. What time is it there? What part of Canada are you in?
Windsor, which is right next to Detroit.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yep. Okay, so first of all, can you give the fans a bit of an introduction about yourself and sort of your musical leanings and what you do?
Yeah, let's see. Well, I'm the singer in the band now. I actually, Theocracy started out sort of as a solo project, and that was not intentional. That was sort of just by default because I'm down here in Georgia, and it's not exactly a metal hotbed, especially for the type of stuff we do. So, I couldn't, it was hard to find anyone who even knew, what this type of music was in the beginning. And the whole reason I started was to write songs. And so I always wrote songs, and it eventually got to the point where I had a collection of songs that, I wanted to put out. And Darren Blevins from Metal Ages Records at the time, heard, I think, like a few of the demos or something, and was interested in putting out the album. And so basically, the collection of songs that I'd written and demoed, it became the first album. And so, it's definitely imperfect as far as production and things like that. It just kind of, that's how it happened, and then it's gone from there. Adding members and slowly but surely becoming an actual a full-on band, an actual touring entity. So yeah, that's about it. And as far as style, I mean, it's definitely melodic metal. That's just what I usually call it when people ask, because it's, we get called a little bit of everything, and we have elements of a lot of, from everything from thrash to progressive metal, and power metal and classic metal and that kind of stuff. So I just normally say, melodic metal. That pretty much covers what we do, I think. So
yeah, it's always tough to fit labels, especially you sit there. Well, are you progressive and power? Or are you thrash and this? It's just like we're heavy metal and we got a singer.
Exactly, and especially with the progressive thing, I think that's we get characterized that way a lot, and I love so much progressive metal. Especially back 90s kind of era, but I don't really think that I'm afraid sometimes when we're classified that way that it sort of it's a little bit off because we're not quite that technically adept usually.
Yeah.
I mean, we take elements of that stuff, and we do have our moments, with the odd time signatures and the sort of flashy instrumentals, but it's very it's a very very small part of what we do. So
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you guys are definitely not Dream Theater, say.
yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah. So
So, if you don't mind, I'd like to sort of back up in your musical career a little bit and sort of build our way up to the new album.
sure.
So growing up, how did you get started as a musician?
Um, Honestly, it just always came just completely naturally to me. I mean, my family is very, very musical, really on both sides, my mom's side and my dad's side. And, it was, they all sang in church and there was always music around the house. And I kind of started early that way, really, in church or whatever, even just as a little kid, kind of up there leading the singing and that sort of, I think, developed my ear for harmony and whatnot. Um, and so it was just always around me, and I was immediately just took to it and was drawn to it and loved it, and it came naturally to me, and eventually I always just sort of, I remember even, as a little kid, writing poetry and things like that. And I always wanted to write songs even before I could, and
Yeah.
that's ultimately why I picked up a guitar. I never had any aspirations of being, any sort of guitar hero. I just wanted to write songs, and I wanted to be able to have a way to do that, and so that's kind of how it happened.
Oh, cool. And what were some of your initial influential albums and things of that nature? Like, did you get started pretty well right into metal, or did it sort of progress through the years?
Really, pretty well right into metal. I mean, aside from the sort of little kid kind of like I was talking about, singing in church and the kind of like my dad was big into Southern gospel and stuff like that, and which actually probably sort of helped develop my ear for harmony. But yeah, when I started discovering the stuff I liked on my own, it was pretty much right into metal. I mean, and there was a lot of the stuff, whatever was popular at the time, and then eventually, hearing Operation Mindcrime and Queensryche, that's what completely changed my world.
Oh, same here, man. Same here.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, I mean, that's where it starts and ends for me, and still for me, easily my favorite album of all time. And so that was sort of it was just eye opening. I mean, it was so several reasons. I mean, it was so different from even though they became very popular and sold millions of records, it was just so different from everything else. And it was sort of I really dug the sort of intelligence behind it, and the I mean, it was cool. It was something that only me and a couple of my friends were into. And that sort of exclusive kind of club thing. And my tastes kind of went from there. Eventually the Fates Warning and Dream Theater. Kind of more progressive stuff, as well as Metallica, Megadeth, thrashy stuff.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden, and then eventually the European power metal scene as well. Sonata Arctica and Edguy and bands like that. So a lot of different influences. It was always about songs. And songwriters. That's what I was drawn to, and what caught my ear. More than I appreciated great singers and guitar players and things like that. But it was all about the songs for me. So, and it still is.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Who are some of the bands you listen to today? Some of the newer bands.
Newer bands, let's see. I really like, I guess they're not really new anymore, but Circus Maximus, I really really like on the prog front. That was actually the first prog metal band in quite a while that I really latched onto, because they wrote great songs, and it wasn't just about showing off or whatever. And same for Seventh Wonder. Those are a couple of my more recent discoveries, and I'm a huge fan of outside the metal spectrum, more progressive rock, but Neil Morse.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, big fan of his stuff. And again, that's not really new, but aside from that stuff and the power metal bands that I like too, the current stuff, but I still just love the classics. Those, it's hard to beat those old Queensryche records and that kind of stuff. So I still normally, I've never really been one to necessarily grow out of music for the most part. I mean, generally, if I find something I really like, even back in the day, I may not love it like I did, but I still at least, generally appreciate it. So,
So you're not one of those guys who goes through like 100 albums a year or something. Like you tend to grab an album and really dig into the meat of it before you move on to something else.
absolutely. I think that's the only way to do it. I think I said this in another interview recently, because I mean, that always puzzles me when you see people talk about here are my, 200 favorite albums of the year or whatever. To me, I mean, if you're plowing through that much music, you're not really, properly listening to anything. And maybe it's I have sort of a different perspective just knowing how much work, goes into these types of records, but yeah, I mean, that's half the fun, listening to stuff and seeing how much it grows on you, and discovering new little ins and outs of different albums. And, a lot of times I think the ones with the most staying power are the ones that take you a few listens to really kind of dig into them.
Oh yeah, especially I mean as a musician, if you want to sit down and learn, oh I gotta learn that harmony, it's really cool, or oh I gotta learn that guitar solo, and it's like, well, you're now devoting so much time just to one song.
Yeah,
Never
exactly.
mind, a whole record.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So growing up, who were some of your favorite vocalists? Obviously, I assume Tate would be one. Who were some others that really sort of sparked your interest?
Yeah, of course, Jeff was a big one. Sebastian Bach actually was always one of my favorites. Skid Row was one of my early favorite bands, even before discovering the Queensryche thing, because I
You a
always
big fan of Slave?
Slave to the Grind.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's one of my top five albums of all time.
Oh, nice. Same here, man. Same here.
Yes, yeah. I mean, to me, they were always just. I mean, I see why they sort of got lumped into the hair metal thing. Obviously, kind of starting off, but Slave is just timeless, and his voice was always one of my early favorites. And aside from that, let's see, Bruce Dickinson, of course. Ray Alder, I always loved. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank now, but those are some of the big guns.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I think Ray kind of gets a lot of shit, but you listen to him on like Parallels or Perfect Symmetry, and you just go, God damn.
Oh yeah, he's
Very,
incredible.
very Jeff Tate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep, and that I mean that's it's so funny now, especially with Parallels. It's so obvious that's they were trying to ride the coattails of that Queensryche boom at the time, and it worked for me. I mean that's how I discovered them.
Yeah,
It's like there's another band that does something sort of similar, and I was hooked. But yeah, Ray's awesome.
yeah. Certainly didn't help having Jimbo Barton mix the thing either and make it sound just like Empire.
Exactly.
So I know in the band you used to play guitar, keyboards, and sing. What else do you play, or is that basically it?
That's pretty much it. I mean, I have a hard time saying that I play any of that stuff because I'm not a great player. I mean, I guess guitar, I'm a pretty decent rhythm player. That's what I concentrated on. But other than that, it's really just sort of, keyboards I can plink around on a little bit. I can play bass, but I play it like a guitar player plays bass, you know? So yeah, just mainly I would say guitar. I'm actually, it's actually sort of one of my goals for the next year or so to kind of increase my abilities on the keyboard as well. I do write sometimes on keyboards, and I like I said, I plink around, but I need to get kind of more comfortable with it because I figure the more things the more weapons you have in your arsenal or whatever as a writer, that you're comfortable with, kind of the more ideas will probably come. So yeah, mostly guitar though.
Okay, so now let's dive into some Theocracy, and I guess we'll sort of work our way up through the records. So the band originally got started. It was just sort of something you were noodling around with.
Well, it was always what I wanted to do, and it was always my vision. I mean, I'm the guy who used to sit around in high school and invent fake bands and fake albums with track listings and song links and all that stuff. So just the idea of making records was always sort of really romantic to me, and still is really. I mean, so it was always what I wanted to do, but it just the fact that it started out as a solo project was kind of just by necessity. But yeah, it was very, it was a long time coming, a long time writing songs, and sort of honing my craft before anything ever came of it.
Do you still use the Yamaha as an AW44 board?
I don't, I used it for the first record, but it eventually got sold to make way for more gear. But considering how absolutely clueless I was about what I was doing, at that point, I mean, it did well for me.
Yeah. That was initially how I found out about the band. There was just a posting on a message forum for that.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I was trying to work with a friend, trying to figure out how to use that board to begin with, and just I think it was your post or someone else just said, "Hey, check out this one man band doing this progressive metal," and I went, "Oh, that'll be kind of interesting." And
Wow.
I don't even know if the album was out then, but I think it was Serpent's Kiss was the first song I heard. I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, maybe so. I saw recently. I don't remember if it was on our forum or another forum. Someone else saying that that's how they had been a fan since the 44 the AW 4416 forums. I guess I posted something way back then or whatever, and they kind of, I guess, kept an ear to what I was doing since then, which is very cool. But yeah, it was I mean, recording wise, it's always kind of gone hand in hand for me, because I always demoed my own stuff and sort of, got better at the production and the recording side of it, as I went along, sort of naturally. I mean, started out on a crappy little, 4-track cassette thing and moved up to, 8-track cassette, which I still actually have, and then to the Yamaha and on and on. So that's kind of been a natural process for me over the years as well.
And then, so being a one-man band on that, I mean, and trying to be an engineer at the same time, how did the recording sessions go for that record? I mean, that had to be an insane amount of work.
Yeah, it was. Although I mean, it's funny enough. The work has only gotten, it's only increased. With every album, even though I'm not playing everything anymore, just because, like I said back then, there was I knew so little about what I was doing, and now I'm pretty good at it because I've done it for so long, and so there's just so much more. It's just so much more involved now. All the work involved. But yeah, it was. I remember just how frustrating the drum machine was, because it was. I mean, like I said, just being clueless about that stuff. I mean, there's so many relatively easy ways to program drums, fake drums, and you can, especially for metal now, you can do it fairly convincingly because a lot of times there's not a whole lot of dynamics in the music or whatever. But I didn't have a clue, and I just had a drum machine and was banging on the buttons, literally just physically pounding the kick and the snare buttons with my fingers. And I remember how just maddening that was, trying to get that stuff right because it was, have to do cymbals separately and all that kind of stuff. So that's my biggest memory of the hard work of that era.
Oh, wow. Did you do choirs the same way that you did back then, or have you changed things?
I do, yeah, I do it the same way. I'm a lot faster now, though. I've just got it down to a science. I've done it so many times, and there's not, that said, there's not necessarily a strict formula. I mean, it really just depends on the part, and usually I kind of feel it out. I mean, start with the main melody or whatever, and start adding octaves, and then as I add harmonies, it's usually pretty obvious what the part is calling out for, and what's overkill and what's just right. But yeah, I can fly through them now. I've just done it so many times, and there's really, there's no real shortcut to it. You just got to sing it. If you want that sound, just got to sing it that many times and
Yeah.
that many octaves, and that's part of what we do. So.
Did you do like a full spectrum, like 8 parts or whatever? Or?
Oh yeah, I mean, there'll be like 80 something tracks a lot of times.
Holy crap.
Yeah, yeah, or many more than that if it's some of the more busy, counterpoint sections and that kind of thing. Because it's, I mean, once you get into, singing a part 8 times and then singing it an octave lower 8 times and then sometimes an octave higher 8 times and then, same thing for harmony number 1, same thing for harmony number 2. I mean, it adds up pretty fast. But
Oh yeah. Would you ever consider re-recording that first album, or you just kind of leave it as is?
that's actually, we're actually talking about that now, because it's out of print now, and we still get asked, constantly for it, and people are still looking for it, which is pretty amazing. And so Ulterium, our label now, they want to put it out, and And so we're kind of talking about what we want to do. Really, there's all the options on the table from re-recording to just remixing it to sort of anything in between. And I think probably what we're going to do is just have Sean record real drums on it
Yeah,
and
yeah, that.
remix it and re-release it. Yeah, because I think I mean, listening to it now, I mean, especially some of the vocals and that kind of stuff. I mean, I could do it so much better now, but I know that a lot of people are attached to that album, and I know how it is as a fan. People don't like for things that they're attached to necessarily to be messed with too much. So in a way, it's tempting to try to better it, but I'm kind of the mindset that albums are a snapshot in time. And so I think probably what we'll end up doing is yeah, just putting the real drums on it and remixing it so there's a decent sounding version of that original album out there. And then maybe in addition to that, maybe pick like two of the songs or something and do full on updated re-record them with the full band, new guitars, new vocals, and all that to kind of hear how a modern circa 2012 Theocracy version would sound. I think that's kind of a nice compromise.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like Ed Guy did with Savage Poetry. To kind of hear, well, here's us 5 years ago, and here's us now, and just the huge leap.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And that was I loved that re-release. So it's tempting from that front. From that standpoint, but I think for now at least it'll probably just be a remix, maybe with a couple of songs, fully redone from the ground up. Another thing is just putting that much work again into something I've already done once. It's I think with where we are now, it's important to kind of keep looking forward.
All right, now we've got to go to a quick break.
Okay.
Can you give me 3 songs that you can think of from the first Theocracy record?
Yeah, I would say Serpent's Kiss, whatever you can play of that.
Yep. Yeah, I think we can definitely play at least the first half of that one.
It's a long one. And then probably Mountain and Theocracy.
Oh, great one. Love that one. All right, well, let's kick everything off right here with the title track of the band. This is Theocracy right here with Theocracy, and we'll be back with more Matt Smith, so make sure to stay tuned. 99.1 CJAM FM. There's Theocracy right there with The Serpent's Kiss and the title track of the band, Theocracy. Right now on the line, we have Matt Smith, the singer of that band. We've been waiting nearly 2 years to get him on this show, and because of scheduling, it's only now that we're able to get him. Very glad to have him. Now, Matt, you've kind of mentioned this, but what were some of the problems with getting Mirror of Souls, your second record, off the ground? I mean, obviously, there was a major jump between the first album and the second one, including new band members.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I spent so long looking for, like I said earlier, anyone who knew what this kind of music was and wanted to play it, had no luck. Even considered moving. I didn't even really have a plan, but I thought about moving somewhere where maybe there were more musicians, or at least there would be a chance or whatever. And then it turned out that Sean, our drummer, basically the whole time had lived about 5 minutes up the road from me. He was actually, my cousin introduced me to him. He contacted me and sort of was bugging me for a while about getting together and jamming, and it was just great. I mean, from the word go, I mean, he's incredible, and it was just kind of funny that after all that, literally, not even 5 minutes up the street was the guy who ended up being our drummer. And so he was first, and we got together and we used to just jam a lot, and bass players we sort of had the Spinal Tap thing with bass players. We went through several. None of them really worked out long term for just a number of reasons. Either they weren't really into it and committed, or decided they wanted to start a family instead of being a band, or there's just a number of things. And so that was sort of a kind of an ongoing process for quite a while. And then but Jonathan Hines, our guitar player, he lived in Atlanta, about probably an hour and a half from where Sean and I live here in Athens, and he was a fan of the first album, and I think contacted me. I don't really remember now, if he contacted us as a, hey, you guys want a guitar player, or or if it just eventually led into that. But we eventually got together and jammed, and he's been with the band ever since as well. And so it was, it ended up being almost 5 years between the first two albums, and it was, that was such a long, long time. But there was a number of reasons. I mean, a lot of it was that band member thing, just trying to find the right lineup and going through, bass players, and sort of it just kind of happened organically. And then that coupled with writing songs, coupled with Metal Ages, the label that the first album came out on, they eventually folded, and so we had to try to shop for a new label for the next album. And then Mirror of Souls, the second album, was my like I said, I didn't really know what I was doing recording wise first album, so that was
Yeah.
Mirror of Souls was the first project of that scope that I really took on, and so it was learning everything as I went. And I mean, a lot of that stuff I can do faster now, because I've done it multiple times. But it's just that was just that all that stuff added together, and suddenly it's almost 5 years, and there we were, finally ready for album number two.
And then what? Well, I mean, what blew me away immediately from the two albums, other than having a real drummer, was just the day and night between the two productions. I mean, the first album, it was a good sounding album, but the second one, you went from like Kill 'Em All to like Frederick Nordstrom. That was a huge turnaround.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was another reason it took so long. It was because I really, it went from being the production thing went from being something that I was always interested and fascinated by it, and always enjoyed it. But it was sort of, again, sort of out of necessity, just kind of demoing songs. And it went from that to being something that I was really interested in, as basically as a side career. So there was a lot of learning, just a lot of work and a lot of learning. And yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. I mean, I think you can definitely hear the leap, but it definitely took a lot of time and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to figure out how to get it to that point.
Did you spend a lot of time in the studio just, reading a tip or whatever, and then just, okay, let's see if this works?
Oh yeah. Just constantly. I mean, just years of that stuff, and doing studio work for other local bands, assisting in other studios around town, just sort of reading as much as I could, and trying things and practicing and trial and error. I mean, just like any craft, really. It just a lot of work, and I do really enjoy it. And that's actually sort of what I've moved on to doing kind of full time now, which is nice. And I'm still actually sort of in that transition. But a lot of the time between the debut album and Mirror of Souls was that, and just sort of trying to get better at that craft, and learning how to make an album at at that level, because it's it was quite a little intimidating, going from, it's like, all right, these aren't just demos meant to catalog your latest batch of songs anymore. I mean, this is going to be a worldwide released album. So yeah, it was a lot of work.
Oh yeah. All right, right now we've got to go to another break. Would you mind giving me two tracks from Mirror of Souls that we can crank?
Let's see. On Eagle's Wings.
Okay.
I won't torture you by saying Mirror of Souls. How about Absolution Day?
Oh yeah, for sure. Great tune. All right, let's do it up. This is Absolution Day from Theocracy from their record Mirror of Souls. Make sure to stay tuned for more Matt Smith. 99.1 CJAM FM. There's two tracks in a row, back to back, right there from Theocracy. That was On Eagle's Wings, and before that we had Absolution Day from their album Mirror of Souls. And right now on the line we have Mr. Matt Smith, the singer and main songwriter of Theocracy. So Matt, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to get into it in further detail. What sort of setup are you using nowadays in terms of production and recording?
Well, I've got a pretty cool setup, although it's constantly in flux. I mean, it's sort of I'll sort of build stuff up, and then money will get tight, and I'll have to sell some gear, and kind of try to build it up again a little bit. But so it's constantly sort of in flux. But I use a program called Nuendo on a Mac G5, and I have some nice SSL converters, and some nice outboard a few nice preamps and compressors and things like that. So I've got some really nice kind of key pieces, and I sort of try to build from there, as I can. And that was kind of nice. We were actually able, before As the World Bleeds, I was able to expand a little bit more, my setup, to enable us to do the album. And so it's, Michael Romeo from Symphony X, he actually, early on, sort of in that time between the first two albums, he was a big help to me as I was starting, engineering stuff.
So does he have a forum, or how'd you get in touch?
No, we have a mutual friend, a guy who was a big fan of the band. He was, I think at that point he was like the head of the Symphony X mailing list or something, and so he knew those guys really well and put us in touch, and that's how I decided on Nuendo originally, because that's what Michael used, and he recommended it and said he could help me out with it. So that was very cool of him, and I've just kind of gone from there. So it's, like I said, I'm constantly trying to, add little bits and bobs as I can, more microphones or more preamps or whatever. It's primarily a mixing studio, at the moment. I mean, it's really small, but I'll have, we'll track some stuff in there, and I'll have some local bands in to track, now and again. But I'm pretty limited what I can do right now with, the space I've got. So that's one of my pipe dreams eventually, to be able to sort of build a little bit bigger space and enable me to take it a little bit further with what I can do, recording wise.
Yeah.
But no complaints, it's fun.
Now I've got to ask, how did you get that guitar tone on Mirror of Souls? And I mean, it's basically the same thing on As the World Bleeds as well. What sort of setup did you use?
Let's see, Mirror of Souls, the rhythms. There was 4 guitar tracks. I think it was 2 tracks of the PV6505, which is basically the same as the 5150.
Yeah, is that the Plus edition or just the regular?
That was the Plus. When I was still playing guitar, I was using that live for a while. I had the Plus, and John has the regular, which he still has. And so it was 2 tracks of that, and then 2 tracks of the Frankenstein.
Oh,
and
nice.
And then the guitar was, I think it was my ESP. Well, it was actually an LTD model, but it was the Michael Emmett from Arch Enemy had like a signature model that he did. It was called the Ninja V. It was like a flying V, but a little bit different shape, sort of kind of sharp and curved at the bottom.
Oh, cool.
Really cool. Yeah, really cool guitar. So that's what we used for that. And then this record was actually only 2 tracks instead of 4. Just a left and a right. But I used a splitter, so it was 2 amps. It was the Frankenstein once again, but the primary most of the tone was actually my Marshall JVM head. Like the vintage modern head, which is great. That's my favorite toy at the moment. So that's what that's the majority of the tone on this new one. But it was the signal was split, sent to that, and also to the Frankenstein for a little bit, a little bit extra. And then guitar wise, it was an ESP Horizon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's nice, pretty blue guitar. So that was cool. We sort of split the guitar duties this time around, depending on kind of who was available. We talked about how we wanted to do it, and I told the guys, I have no ego with this stuff, as far as who plays what or whatever. So, however you guys want to do the stuff. So we ended up, Val did some of the rhythms when he was down, and John did some stuff, and then I did some stuff. So it was really all 3 of us, ended up playing some rhythm on the record. But we all used that same guitar and same setups, for consistency's sake. So
Did you do any reamping at all, or no?
actually I did, yeah, because it was over, like I said, with 3 guys playing guitar, and sort of, even though the other guys only live a couple hours away, it's still scheduling, sometimes it's tough to get everybody together,
Yeah, yeah.
because everybody has, full-time day jobs, and a lot of the guys have to travel for work a lot too. So yeah, I just recorded DIs of everything as we went, and then reamped everything at once, I think, through that setup.
Very cool. And then, so what projects are you involved with now in terms of engineering and mixing?
Well, the big one I just finished. There's a metal opera from Brazil called Soul Spell,
Oh,
and
cool. Right
yeah,
on.
they have two albums out, and just finished the third one, and so I actually just finished mixing that, and it just went off to mastering, I think, last week. So that's basically taken up all my time since since finishing As the World Bleeds. I mean, it was a huge project, just hundreds of tracks, and dozens of different singers, and guitar players and keyboard players and orchestration, and it was quite quite an undertaking. So it sounds really good, though. I'm very happy with the way it came out. I'm excited for it to see the light of day, because I think it's going to do really well for them, and I think their fans are going to love it, and hopefully people will hear it, and it'll lead to some more work, for me as well, so I can keep a roof over my head.
Yeah.
But that's been the big one, and then well, I mean, I guess that is all I've done, since As the World Bleeds. It's taken this long, and then there's a couple of others, smaller kind of bands that I'm in talks with, for stuff over the next few months, and also going to be doing sort of freelance engineering a little bit. I got a buddy here in town, who has a studio called Pigpen, a bigger space and a nicer tracking room than I've got in my little place, and so that's actually where I recorded the drums for As the World Bleeds, because he had a nicer room, and so I help out there every now and then too, and I'm probably going to start doing more of that here, in the next couple months. So
Oh, very cool.
hopefully things will stay busy.
So now every year, in addition to the albums you put out, you also do usually a Christmas tune every year or so.
Yep.
How did you get started doing that?
The first one was, I believe it was, Christmas '03. So, right after the first album came out, a month or two later. And I don't know, I can't even remember now the sort of initial idea spark, but it was probably, I always loved Sabotage, and when Trans-Siberian Orchestra came out, and I enjoyed that sort of kind of metal rock Christmas stuff that they were doing, and I thought it would be cool to kind of take that up a notch to more, what we do, with some more speed, and more heaviness in spots, and kind of the epic thing. And so I picked out this, ended up being a huge mistake, but I basically picked out every good part of every Christmas song, ever, and stuck, put it together in this big giant medley, and thought it would be something cool for the fans, kind of a cool, something fun that I enjoy, but also kind of just a thank you, for supporting the album, and then it somehow or another just turned into sort of an expected thing every year, kind of a tradition, and it was fun, and like I said, it sort of came back to bite us, that we had used so many good moments from good songs, and there wasn't a whole lot left. So it sort of became a struggle, and then at some point we had to sort of start writing originals to kind of fill in the blanks there. But it was something fun, and the fans seemed to really enjoy it as well.
So now that you've used most of the good ones, do you think you'll continue, or maybe sort of really sparsely?
I honestly, I don't know at this point. I mean, it's kind of what I said. Well, this past year we weren't able to do one because there was just no time. I mean, we finished the record, we went on tour in Europe. It was come back and doing press and all that kind of stuff, and there just really wasn't time to get one together. I said it. I was like, well, it has to stop at some point. Eventually. I mean, we can't do it every year, until we're 80 or whatever. So, so I don't know. It's probably going to be one of those things where it'll happen. It'll still happen. Maybe not necessarily, every year. I guess it'll probably just be according to what we've got going on at the time.
So now, about your lyrics, Now, obviously, Christianity plays a huge part in the band.
Mm-hmm.
Why those themes exactly? I mean, obviously, you said you listen to a lot of music from all over the spectrum. Why do you go for particularly Christian?
Well, I mean, that's what I believe, and that's that was just my thought process, growing up, and I looked for Christian bands at the time that offered, what I enjoyed musically and sort of that level of integrity and intelligence and that sort of thing, and most of what I found was not that at all. It would either came across as really sort of second rate versions of whatever was popular at the time, or really kind of screamo, kind of the stuff that I wasn't into.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that the bands weren't out there. I mean, for sure, it's just in my little corner of the woods, I couldn't find any Christian bands that did what I wanted to hear, and so that's kind of how it came about. Was like, well, I'll maybe I can have something to offer here. Sort of trying to write about this kind of subject matter with more thought put into it, and not worrying about trends and what's popular and that kind of stuff. So that's how we set sail in the beginning.
And has there been any pressure to do secular things, or just everyone just kind of says leave well enough alone and let you do your thing?
It really depends. I mean, there's obviously, there's always that contingent of, I can't get into these guys because of the lyrics or whatever. And I think a lot of times that's, I mean, fair enough if that's how people feel. I think a lot of times it's more sort of what they expect, to hear, which I understand. So there is that, I don't know. I don't really feel it as pressure. We just do what we do, and that's what Theocracy is. And I mean, if I want to, maybe one day I'll do a solo album where I can do, tackle some different subjects lyrically, or do, I always really enjoy sort of, and this probably goes back to the Mindcrime thing, but kind of fictional stories in music, and Sonata Arctica is one of my favorite bands for that kind of thing as well. So maybe I'll do something like that someday. But for what Theocracy is, I think it is what it is, and we don't plan to change it. And I like I said, some people don't, or they can't get into it because of that, they say. But there's a whole lot of people that we hear from who say, I don't necessarily believe this, but I love your music and I love the emotion you put into it, and you make me think or whatever. And then there's a whole bunch of people who really appreciate what we do on the lyrical front as well, which is
Yeah.
the most fulfilling for us. So it's a nice balance, I think. I mean, it's awesome whenever people appreciate what you do.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's always great just hearing something other than baby, baby, baby.
Yeah, baby, 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 or Dungeons and Dragons or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, which there's a place for it too, but it's that's always kind of funny to me, when people will sort of bash us lyrically and then sing the praises of whatever minstrels in the woods, kind of
or Dragon Force.
yeah. So, but hey, people like what they like.
And then a couple years ago, you did a Nevermore cover or karaoke track.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How'd all that come about?
Just for fun, they posted something online, like an instrumental version, and they were doing a little contest, I think, like write your own lyrics and melodies, for this song and record it, and I thought, hey, that's a cool idea, and I wanted to see. I've never really done anything like that, with other people's music, so I wanted to see if I could pull it off. So it was really nothing more than that, just a fun little exercise, and actually ended up being pretty hilarious because I remember, I think, like on the Nevermore forum, it just caused this huge storm of people were saying that people were making it sound like we were like millionaires who tour the world constantly in this huge band, and how dare he take away the chances of the real fans to do something like this, and it was just got blown up into this huge thing where it was really like, well, you you obviously think that we're way bigger than we are, and B, it was honestly just a little something to do for fun. So that's really all there was to it.
Yeah, I mean, even I remember seeing that on YouTube, and just kind of the comments, just people just, why is he doing this? He's in this famous band, and it's just like, I think at one point you actually had to post and say, look, guys, this was all for fun.
I probably did because it was. I remember there was some brutal stuff people were saying. Just really really just ripping me a new one. For doing it, but I had fun with it, and and a lot of people really seem to like it. We still get requests for on the forum and stuff for posting it. People looking for the link for that thing. So people dug it, I think, but
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
people thought that I was on vacation from my day job in Metallica and decided to crush people's dreams by entering this contest or something. But it was pretty funny.
So right now we've got to go to another break. I'd like to play the Nevermore track, but can you also pick one of the Christmas songs? I've got all of the ones I think you've released.
Yeah, sure. Let's say Rudolph versus Frosty.
Oh, love that one. That one is hysterical. Okay, yeah, we'll get to that one. Right now, though, here is Theocracy, or rather, Nevermore, with Matt Smith on vocals singing The Obsidian Conspiracy. Crank it up, and we'll be back soon with more Matt Smith. 99.1 CJAM FM. There's Theocracy right there with the master storyteller from their brand new record, As the World Bleeds. Before that, we had a Christmas tune they did called Rudolph versus Frosty, and a karaoke track of a Nevermore song that singer Matt Smith did of the Obsidian Conspiracy, writing his own lyrics and melody for the song. And right now, we're in the midst of a very special show. On the line, we have Mr. Matt Smith of Theocracy. And I guess right now is probably as good a time as any to jump into the new record. So obviously you've kind of mentioned in the past about adding new band members and so forth, but how did having a whole band this time around impact the songwriting? Like, was it still sort of you taking the reins, or did the other members have a lot more input this time around, and did they really contribute to the songwriting and that sort of thing?
They definitely had more input. I mean, it was still, the core song ideas still came from me, but it was, I've said time and again, I mean, this album would not have turned out like it did without those guys. 'Cause, I mean, they really added so much to it, and it worked out perfectly. I mean, I had some of the material I wrote, completely, like I Am and some of the other songs in there. And then there were others that were, really nice collaboration. The one that jumps to mind immediately is Altar to the Unknown God. I mean, I had the skeleton of that song written, the riff and the verses and the choruses and whatnot, but it wasn't really put together, and Val had some riffs that he was playing that he had written, before, and I really liked them, and I said, man, this works perfectly with this idea I have, check this out. And we got together at John's place and sat down and basically, put that song together and mapped it out. So that was a real good collaboration. And then, lots of other, moments, musical moments that, once again, sort of worked perfectly with what I had, to kind of take it to the next level. And yeah, it was just, this was much more of a band thing. And that was very, conscious. I mean, even the, the earliest parts of recording, laying down the drum tracks, I wanted to have that sort of feel, so we, all the guys came down for a few days and we all played, together live in the studio, as Sean, laid his drum tracks down, and which is great. I mean, on every level. I mean, it's, it adds such a nice energy to the songs and the feel and it's adds an energy to Sean's performances because it's, we're all in there together. So it's, you can't replicate that. And, everybody gets their practice in and, learns the songs for upcoming live shows. And it was great. So yeah, it was a much more of a, definitely felt like a, full on 5-piece band the whole time. And I think everybody really contributed to the point where they can have a lot of personal pride in the result, which is great.
And then how has Val Wood impacted Theocracy as a band? I mean, his lead work, for me is sort of the big step up from your previous stuff.
I agree totally. That's, if you point at one thing that jumps out immediately, on this record, I think it's that. And he's made a huge difference. I mean, really on all fronts. I mean, from the live aspect. I mean, we're such a better live band now. For several reasons. I mean, me not having to play guitar anymore, being able to concentrate on just vocals, and having that big two guitar presence. And such an interesting guitar player. Who sort of demands attention. With what he's doing with his fingers, and so it's made a huge difference. And the thing that's so great about him is he's young. He's by far the youngest member of the band, and he's so good. And I'd seen him play. I mentioned earlier the sort of legion of bass players we went through. One of them, before playing with us, was in a band with Val, and so I saw him play live a couple times, and his band eventually split up, and we got in contact, and yeah. What's so great about him is that despite being so young, he doesn't play guitar like someone so young. Not in the sense of ability, but in the sense of sort of ego. He's flashy, and he can certainly make your jaw drop with what he can do technically. But what floored me was just how much he always played to the song. I mean, that's what I was looking for. I mean, I was always the type that would rather have no lead guitar player to speak of than have somebody who just plows through every solo section of every song the same way, sort of regardless of what's going on.
Yeah.
Even if you listen to the solos on this record, there's such a variety, and they all, they really fit, and they're all really melodic, and they take the song somewhere new. It takes it to another plateau. It's not just because I personally, I can get really bored with guitar solos. I love good guitar solos. I love guitar harmonies, but at some point, if it's just a solo for solo's sake, I can zone out. And so, you take a solo like, oh gosh, the title track, As the World Bleeds, it's just a complete shredder. And then, a song like Drown, it's just this awesome, just sort of soulful, just kind of wailing thing. It's just, I really can't say enough about his playing and what he brought to this project and to the band, in general.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that was, as soon as I hit play, just hearing that first lead just went, whoa, okay. There's,
Yeah.
that's the final piece is in the Theocracy puzzle, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it felt to us too. It's been, and immediately, it's been taken off higher and higher. From the moment and Jared as well. I don't want to forget about Jared. Finally finding the bass player who's not expendable. And who's excited to be there and put in all the work to learn all the songs and vocal harmonies and all that stuff. So he's been awesome as well. As soon as those two guys joined, it was just, onward and upward. Suddenly we were on tour in Europe, and it really felt like we, went to a different level sort of immediately. So that was really cool.
And then what challenges live do you guys face? Obviously having to do, insane choir work and stuff. Obviously, to try and dumb that down into a live setting, obviously it must take a lot of work.
Yeah, it's always sort of a work in progress. I think the key is just to try to write songs that work as songs. When you have to strip away a couple of layers, for the live thing, the songs are still, the melodies are strong enough where it, the songs will still take off live, and it's sort of a different thing anyway for me, the live show is so much about, sweat and energy and excitement and intensity, and so yeah, it depends on the part really, it's just, we do what we can do with, me and Jared and John, splitting up those harmonies, and it's something that we're constantly working on, and it's definitely a challenge. You don't realize how, venue to venue, show to show, you may not be able to hear yourself at all vocally, and
Yeah.
and it's always a work in progress. But both those guys have really good voices, and we spend a lot of time on working out parts and figuring out who needs to sing what, and so it's a constant challenge.
So how is it touring Europe both times. Do you have any good stories from that, or care to share any experience you gained from it?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was hard. It was because of the scheduling. It was like, we learned something new. We've learned something new both times that we did it. It's so much time spent, 12 hours or whatever in an airplane, and then 12 hours in a van or a bus or whatever. It's just so much riding and so much lack of sleep that we haven't managed to make it through one of these yet without at least some of us getting really sick. And last time it was, I think Jared got really sick and lost his voice, and this time, John and I got really sick and lost our voices, which obviously, as a singer, is pretty scary. So, but yeah, it's like you learn something new every time. The first time it was we learned, we needed to put more care into setting up sleeping arrangements, and things like that. And this time it's more of a scheduling thing, and we need to put a day off after every 3 shows or whatever, so so that we can acclimate to the schedules and not get sick again or whatever. But aside from that, I mean, it was awesome. It was an awesome experience both times, and particularly this most recent time. We got there this past year, and our first show was sold out in the Netherlands. And after the first couple shows, we all kind of looked at each other and said, this is a lot bigger than last time. I mean, what happened? So that was very exciting, and encouraging. And I don't know if it's I'm still not sure if it's the shelf life of Mirror of Souls, or the fact that we'd been over there once before, and so we're kind of more of I guess a known quantity at that point, or if it was sort of anticipation for the new album, or what it was, or maybe all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, this most recent time, the first time was great too, but there were some, it was so vastly different show to show. I mean, some we'd have a nice little core of fans there, and some it would be us and a couple other bands, and no one would really know who we were, so we'd have to win them over. Whereas this time, it was like every show, I mean, it was like the audience was there to see us, and there were people there. Our shirts were everywhere, and it was exciting, man. I mean, it was, like I said, I'm not sure exactly what the changes can be attributed to completely, but it was nice to feel that we've started to make some progress.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's always great too when you're going over there and touring, and actually having people in the crowd and making it all worthwhile.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it was like that from the very first show. Like I said, it was just it was sold out, and they were all singing our songs and knew the stuff. It was great, man. It made the all the hardship and all that stuff worth it for sure.
And then, so now, what are Theocracy's plans for the future? Obviously, you mentioned a sort of re-record possible of the first record. What else do you guys have in the works?
Yeah, that first record remix is probably going to be sort of next on the agenda. That's how it's looking right now. Aside from that, really at this point, the only thing is just kind of trying to plan more live shows. We're playing a festival in Finland called the Vapu Gospel Festival at the end of April, and so we're super excited about that. But we're also talking about maybe trying to hit some key cities here in the U.S. finally, which will be awesome. I really hope that happens. It's all very, very early sort of discussion mode at this point. Nothing concrete, but I mean, it was, As the World Bleeds has been pretty eye-opening, because it was almost like it was almost like a sudden reversal of fortune. Whereas in the past, Europe has been by far the strongest market for us or whatever. This time suddenly we seem to do a lot better in the U.S. than anywhere. And Europe's gone forward too, but the U.S. took like a quantum leap forward this time. We debuted on the Billboard Heatseeker chart, and we debuted at #2 on Amazon, and hard rock and metal downloads, and this kind of stuff was just nobody saw it coming. I don't think I don't know where it came from. So that coupled with talking to I was talking to our webmaster the other day, and he was saying, look at how much. I think he said, well, yeah, he sent over some statistics or whatever, with how much our U.S. site visits had jumped, and sort of key areas, where we're getting a lot of traffic, and so I really hope that we can finally, even if it's just a 5 cities or something, really really short, finally hit some sort of key U.S. spots, and we're also talking about some more dates in Europe again, but this is all just as in the early stages, just as much as the U.S. tour discussion. I mean, nothing's concrete yet, so that's really all that's going on right now. Kind of kicking around hopeful tour ideas for maybe over here or maybe across the pond, and then aside from that, we are planning on shooting a music video finally, but we still haven't made any more headway on deciding when or even deciding what song, because we just haven't rehearsed in a while. So I haven't even seen the guys in a little while. So we're about to get back in the swing of regular rehearsals, and we'll talk about that then, and decide what song to do a video for, and when and where to do it. So I'm looking forward to that a lot as well. I think it'll be cool to finally have an official music video that we can spread around online. So there's lots of little exciting things on the horizon.
Oh, that's very cool. Do you think Detroit will wind up as one of those stops if you do tour the States?
I hope so. I don't know. I think one of the places they were. I have to dig out the email, but I think one of the places they were talking about was sort of in that general vicinity, and really that's all it's been so far. Sort of general vicinities. Maybe we could do a show in the so and so area, and then one in the so and so slash so and so slash so and so area. So I don't know where we're gonna end up. Right now it's sort of the label and one of our moderators are kind of heading up the sort of initial inquiries and stuff right now. But I hope so, man. I would love to make it up there.
Very cool. Yeah, really love to see you.
Yeah, definitely got to come out.
So
How long does it take you to get to Detroit?
the bridge is like literally 10 minutes from my house, so it's not that far.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. You guys will have a blast, man. Trust me.
Oh, good.
Well, hey, Matt, it's been absolutely awesome talking to you. We're just about out of time. I think we got time for a shorter song right now. So once again, I want to thank you so much for giving your time to do this. It's very much appreciated, and it's nice that it only took 2 years. I hope the next time we do this doesn't take 2 years.
We'll do it again soon next time, and hopefully we'll make it up to Detroit so I can meet you in person.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, so the pick is yours. Anything from Theocracy's discography that we haven't played. What would you like to end the show with?
It's a tough choice. I love them all. Let's say "Altar to the Unknown God."
Nice. Oh yeah, man, fantastic tune. I think it's probably my favorite from the new record. Just a great one.
Right on.
All right, Matt. Well, thanks again, Much appreciated.
Yeah, man.
And really looking forward to the remix. Take it easy,
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right, thanks. So here's Matt Smith and Theocracy right here doing the Altar to the Unknown God. Crank it up. Thanks again, Matt, and I will see ya next week. Build a fire.